in.
Welcome, Professor. We're glad you could spare the time to see us today. As you know, we have come to ask you about important issues, pollution and global warming.
So before we start with these questions, we would like to know your view on pollution and global warming.
Well, pollution, obviously nobody likes pollution. It's going to be a major problem for the country in the future. Now, global warming will lead to changes to the way we live our modern life. It's going to be a very, very important issue throughout the next century.
Okay, so now we know where you stand with pollution and global warming. Our first question is, how long would it take for England to flood as the ice caps are melting and global warming is causing the sea to rise?
Well, flooding is already occurring in certain areas. We have each winter, there'll be a town or a village where water will cause a major problem. But it's hard to say when flooding will happen. Certainly most of England will not get flooded. The higher the land, the longer it will stay above water. But I mean, with the way current trends are going, the way the pollution's happening, the way the CO2 is getting released, it could be as quick as within the next 100 years that large land masses like Liverpool maybe were underwater. So it's a major problem. There's no way completely knowing the answer.
So, what are the effects going to be on our country over the years?
Effects on the country, obviously we're going to have to try and find a new way of generating our electricity, ways of reducing the production of CO2, perhaps ways of finding new areas to plant trees, new ways of getting the CO2 out of the atmosphere. Economically, it's going to be a very big strain on the country because the money that is needed and lost because of the flooding, because of the problems, the weather changes, money is going to be the big issue that's going to cause a problem for our country.
Currently we are running out of oil. Is this related to the amount of oil spills we have over the years?
Well, obviously oil spills will have an effect on the amount of oil that we have. The more that's spilled, the more we've lost. But the major influence on the amount of oil we've got left is just the need for it. We've got industries, newer developing nations like China use massive amounts of fossil fuels. Mainly they'll use coal, but traffic, all the different things that need the oil to give us the power that we need to run our lives the way we like them. That's the major influence, not really oil spills.
A considerable amount of oil ends up in oceans, so how do we retrieve it back?
The simple answer to that, we don't. What we do is have to remove it to save the ecology, save the wildlife in the area, but once it's been mixed with the water, the only way we can get it out is by diluting it with chemicals or simply fishing it out because it's such a thick chemical and it's not really usable once we get it out.
So, on the effects of global warming and pollution, what can we as our human selves do to help?
Well, a major one is going to be finding new ways of getting our power, new ways that don't burn, don't produce CO2. As a person in a normal family, you've got to look at how much power you use, whether you leave lights on when you didn't need to, whether you take journeys in cars or on planes that you didn't have to take, and maybe how much rubbish you produce, because obviously the rotting of rubbish and the burning of rubbish, which happens a lot when the bins are taken away, that produces a lot of CO2, which leads to global warming. So there's changes for the government and for normal people. For normal people, it's mainly how you live your life. It's going to have to be looked at.
Okay, thank you for spending your time with us today.
No problem.
Back to the studio.